Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Chantel Perry with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, and I'll be moderating this session. This session is serving those who served community-based responses to veteran homelessness. And we have two presentations with three presenters today. The first presentation will be done by London Cares, Homeless Response Services, with Allison McGee and Dana Steele. And second, we will have Veterans Transition Network, Oliver Thorne here to present on the work that they're doing in community. We will have time for questions at the end, and looking forward to a good session. Allison.
Okay, let's go. This is my first time presenting in Dana, so, be patient with us. We're going to try our best. Oh, thanks, guys. Oh, great audience. Okay. So, I'm Allison, and this is Dana. So, we are presenting on our Veteran-Focused Housing Stability Program. So a little bit about who we are. So I am the Housing Stability Coordinator at London Care. So I manage a team of 8 staff, and 2 of those workers are veteran-focused housing stability workers. So we support over 40 veterans in our program currently. I've worked in this sector since 2015. I've worked at many different agencies, from shelter support worker to supportive housing programs, and I also currently work with the OPP as a crisis worker.
Hi, my name's Dana Steele. I've been working with our population for about 8 years now. 5 of those years at London Cares, and 3 of those years at another organization. My role has been wonderful. It's allowed me to be able to learn a lot of the resources that are supported our veterans, as well as giving me a deeper respect and understanding of the sacrifices that our veterans do to support our country, and while giving me a deeper appreciation for the role I play in supporting them.
So a little bit about our agency. So we're based in London, Ontario, and we are a housing first agency. Our principles are very much deeply rooted in harm reduction, client-centered approaches. So we have multiple programs. We have outreach programs. We have a supportive housing building we recently opened almost 2 years ago now. We have a drop-in space that offers laundry and laundry and shower facilities and just a warm space. So everything we do is really motivated in what we believe in, the harm reduction, housing first, because we do strongly believe that housing first is the key to helping people, to getting them the support they need, whether that be medical, addiction supports, or just reconnection to community resources. So all of that is really deeply rooted in what we do. We are also proud to be the first housing first agency in London. So a little bit about our statistics, just an oversight. So these statistics are kind of older, so I did pull some updated data. So I am going to read right off the sheet. So since this year, January of 2025, just calls alone from community LPS and participants and at-office interactions has been 17,356 interactions. We visited campsites and done outreach engagement 6,376 times, and we've done 1,116 referrals to service. And then specific veteran statistics. So since 2025, currently, as of September 2025, we have 38 veterans in our program. So 27 of those are actively engaged with us, and 11 of those are light touch, which we'll get into a little bit more about what that is later on in the presentation. And since the program started in 2014, we've had 140 total housed veterans in our program, and 90 of them have graduated from program. So our presentation, essentially what we want to show you guys is our program. Just imagine having served your country and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, there's many reasons why a veteran faces homelessness. You are homeless. You're camping, or you're on the streets, or you're couch surfing, and that's not an imagination, that's something our veterans experience often. So what we're going to do today is just take you step by step through our program and hopefully give you a better understanding of what we do and things that you can take back to your communities.
So when identifying a veteran, we use a collaborative approach with our outreach programs, emergency shelters, London Police Services. So when they find an individual experiencing homelessness, they will ask him, "Are you a veteran? Have you served?" Once that is identified, then they will then send that through to the city, who will then send an email out to us. A veteran can be a military.
Next slide.
Yeah, no, I'm not there yet though. Can be a military, Air Force, or Navy, or have served as an RCMP, and those are the specific kind of veterans that we support. Okay, that's you.
Okay. Yeah, so as Dana mentioned, once a veteran is identified, that email does go out to the city, and they connect with a system called coordinated access. So I know a lot of communities have coordinated access, some don't. So essentially what coordinated access is a system for supporting homeless individuals. So they will do intakes with them and then connect them to appropriate resources, whether that be shelter, other community resources, sending them back to original communities, because we do get a lot of people outside of London. And then, of course, supporting our veterans and connecting them to our housing stability program. And then usually once we get that information, coordinated access will send it off to the Legion, and they'll confirm service within 24 to 48 hours.
And when a veteran is verified through the Legion, and the city notifies our team by email, Allie will then get that email. Then she would coordinate with myself and the other veteran-focused housing stability worker. Her name is Sierra. We will then connect, make a plan for the individual and how we are going to support them.
So I know somebody asked me earlier what HSW means. So that means housing stability worker. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
Assigned HSW, we then try to find efforts to locate the individual in our city, because as we know, some veterans who are experiencing homelessness can be sleeping rough. That means sleeping somewhere in the city, we can't locate them. So we use a lot of tools and collaboration with a lot of other programs to try and locate the individual within the city. So that means putting a bolo on our HIFIS, using our HIFIS to see if they're staying at another shelter. That could also look like connecting with other agencies to see if they've connected with the individual as well.
We also make sure that our outreach teams are very well connected with our program and know who we're bringing into our program. A lot of our veterans are connecting with our outreach team, so they also do engage with them. And then they will let us know if they see them. So we have a really strong team, which is super helpful. So once we are able to find the veteran, that's kind of when all the work really starts to begin on our end. So the veteran will connect with the housing stability worker, and we begin paperwork. So everybody loves paperwork. So they'll introduce the program, explain what we do. We have a ton of different supports for our veterans. So just going through, it is a voluntary program. So not all of our veterans choose to be connected with us, but 99% of our veterans do, because we have some amazing resources and programs we're connected with. So we work collaboratively with the veteran to identify what their goals are, what they kind of want to get out of housing, and then we begin paperwork and referrals. So we begin things like our consent participation agreement for getting them into the program, VAC consent, so Veterans Affairs Canada, because often we're connecting with Veterans Affairs Canada. And then we also begin paperwork for a program called the Housing Identification Program through St. Leonard's, which we're going to talk about further in the slides, but that's getting proof of income, making sure they have government photo ID, getting a SPDAT done, so the Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool. That's a mouthful. There's a reason we have an acronym. So it's an assessment, just going through their questions like about their mental health, addictions, housing history, family histories, those kind of things. And then getting HIP consent signed. So HIP is the acronym for the Housing Identification Program. So once all that stuff is done, we can send in the HIP program or the HIP referral to the HIP program to St. Leonard's. And once it's all done, they'll be assigned something called a housing finder. So the housing finder will connect and work collaboratively with our housing stability workers to essentially find them housing that matches what they're looking for and meets their needs. So it's very collaborative. Our program is a super collaborative program. So they go through things like what area the veteran might want to be in, or if they might need long-term care or like supportive housing, or if they can be housed in community independently. We also have a couple veteran-specific buildings in our program that holds veteran-specific units, which is very helpful. And so once that's done, they meet, they go over what the veteran wants housing-wise. The housing stability worker, the veteran, and the housing finder will work collaboratively to support the veteran with securing viewings, going to viewings, making sure that the units they're seeing are appropriate for what their needs are.
If a veteran's interested in a unit, it is my role and also the role of his or her housing finder to sit down with them and go over the application with them. That can often look like collecting proof of income, a notice of assessment, valid ID, landlord references. Notice of assessment is typically only used for most part when we're trying to match them with a unit in the London Middlesex housing programs. Yeah, or geared to income as well. We use like a collaborative approach with our housing finder to gather all this information. I would sit down with the veteran, go over the application with them, what they're signing, and what that looks like.
And then a lot of our veteran-specific units too also require the NOAs for applications. So we work collaboratively with a program called Operation Leave the Streets Behind through the Legion. So I did leave pamphlets on almost everybody's seats. In the back we ran out, so there are extra ones up front. So essentially this program works alongside us to support the veteran with different things. So we work with John Sluggett, he's our service officer, Rebecca Heinman and Brittany Campbell, they're provincial service officers. So as soon as a veteran comes in the program, if they haven't connected with the Legion already, they're going to connect with the Legion to do some paperwork. A lot of the time, the Legion can connect them and get them some supports if they have like injury related to service. They can get them some funds that way, or like any other supports that we might not be able to offer them. So they're a really good resource that way. And then so once a unit is secured for a veteran, they can support with things like first and last month's rent. So a lot of our lower income veterans don't have the funds to pay for first and last month's rent ahead of time. So it's a great resource that the Legion provides to cover that first and last month's rent to just kind of ease the mind of our veterans. The funding for a lot of our things comes from the Soldiers Aid Commission, Poppy funds, and then Operation Leave the Streets Behind. And those funds are paid directly to the landlord. And then they also offer things like furniture packages. So our veterans get brand new furniture provided to them. We work with a furniture company in London, and it's all provided, deliveries provided, the veteran doesn't have to worry about it. That furniture does stay with the program though. So if a veteran leaves the city or leaves the program, we do keep that furniture to provide to another veteran. And then apartment kits. So we get things called apartment kits from the Legion, and that includes things like bedding, pots, pans, housing items. Sometimes there's gift cards, there's handmade blankets in there to really make them feel at home and welcome and like they have everything they need to be successful.
So our housing identification program supports with providing housing subsidies to our veterans. So for example, if your rent is about $1,200, they would support with 601. And then if you're on ODSP, our program makes it like it's mandatory for you to do direct pay from your ODSP to the property management. So that amount would look like $599. If you're on CPP or OAS, then you would be paying about 30% of your income for your housing portion.
And then also our veterans that work as well would qualify for that. So it would really be 30% of their income if they are currently working. We would just adjust it based on what they are getting, so it's super handy. So yeah, St. Leonard's does monitor that, and they control like all the financial bits.
Their next step would look like setting up it's called a move meeting. So that would be set up between myself, my coordinator, Allie, and our housing finder, and sometimes our landlord liaisons. So that would look like planning a time to sign the lease, setting up tenant insurance, which London Care supports with ongoing if they are low income and receiving a housing subsidy. That would also look like me setting up hydro, picking up keys. When are we going to pick up keys? How are we going to get them there? Collecting items from the Legion, such as the apartment kits, and making a plan with the veteran on where I'm going to be able to find them and help support them to the lease signing. And then also just checking in with the veteran, see how they're feeling, how they're doing, because sometimes this could be very overwhelming for them. It's something they might not have experienced before. So it's a lot of me checking in with them and seeing how they're doing and how I can best support them.
So I just want to give a heads up. We do have a few pictures of our veterans in the slides. We have gotten consent from all of them to have them in here. So just some really great success stories we've had in our program. So this is a veteran that we've housed pretty recently. Dana works with this individual and was responsible for that. So amazing work. So once the day of move comes, we ensure that all of those things are set up and they're good to go. They have everything prepared for them. There's not going to be any loose ends. And we really work with them and as well as St. Leonard's, the housing finder, to make sure wraparound support is provided and that they're taken care of. So anything that the Legion can't provide, we will step in and provide. So that's usually bigger things like a TV, a DVD player, microwaves, toasters, things like that, or any other kitchen or household items they don't have. And then we also support to the new unit. So sometimes they might not have a way to the new unit. So we do have a vehicle that we can bring them to, or we provide cab vouchers. And then we also ensure that the furniture is getting into that unit. So we do pay for delivery for the furniture. The Legion does cover the furniture package, but making sure that we're communicating with the movers, setting all that up. They have all the relevant information that they need to get the furniture to the veteran. So with the HIP program, once they're housed, they transition off of a housing finder caseload onto something called a landlord liaison. And so this is a great partnership that we have with St. Leonard's. So essentially the landlord liaison is that person that communicates with us or to the landlord for us and kind of acts as a middle person. So if anything comes up with the landlord, whether they have possible issues with the tenant or like things are being done to the unit or rental increases are being done or rent isn't paid, the landlord liaison will be informed of that, and then they will communicate with us, and then we can communicate with the veteran with any issues that come up. So it keeps really open communication with our landlords and maintains those healthy and positive relationships with our landlords that make them want to keep housing our veterans. We also get support with maintenance issues. So if anything comes up with the maintenance issues for like 4 units, we can send that off to the landlord liaison and make sure those are being dealt with and that, you know, our veterans have safe spaces to live and everything is taken care of.
Once the veteran is housed, it's my role to meet with them multiple times a week. And that can look like setting up Ontario Energy Savings Program, which is a program we have in London that helps with their hydro bill monthly if they are a low-income individual. Amounts typically are about $45 a month. So it makes a big difference if it is like a $100 bill, right? It helps with budgeting. I also would connect them with Rogers Connected for Success, which is through Rogers. It's a telecommunication packages that have internet, internet cable, like cell phones, stuff like that. And they provide like low-income like plans for low-income individuals. So like internet could be like as low as $10. They're one of the higher amounts depending on the speed of internet that they want. It looks like about $25 a month. I would also support with budgeting, so that can look like setting up a budget planner with them, going through the amount of money they have coming in, budgeting for groceries, bills, things like that, and also connecting them with food security. So it can look like me providing them with information on our local food banks, meal calendars for community meals, and then also setting goals with them if they want to maybe return to work or if they want to go to school. That's things that I would work with them ongoing.
So just to add to that, yeah, Dana does all that great work, and we really want to make sure that our program is tailored to each specific veteran, and we're working collaboratively with community resources just to ensure that wraparound support is provided. So some of the other external agencies that we work with and get a lot of support from would be, we have a program called Seniors Wraparound Program through London Intercommunity Health Center. So some of our veterans in our program, a lot of them are senior veterans. And so they provide different supports like groups, connections, medical supports for our veterans. So that's one of the programs we work with. Ontario Health at Home is another program. So they can provide things, for an example, we had a veteran that had broken his hip. And so they were able to come into the home and provide things like PSW care and support with in-home taking care of his home because he wasn't able to do that. They had social work supports. They had some family connections for him. We also use them for assessments into long-term care. CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association, so mental health supports, connecting our veterans to that if they're looking for mental health supports. Addiction Services of Thames Valley, so they're an addiction support that we have in London, and so connecting them, and that can look like, again, counseling or referrals to treatment or like different groups that they're looking to connect with. Veterans Affairs Canada, so we work closely with case managers there, and we can connect on many different levels for different things. It really depends on the veteran. We've connected about rehabilitation before, the VIP program, which is a program that supports a veteran that provides them a little extra income and tries to rehabilitate them and get them back to work. Canadian Forces benefits, other addiction supports. And then we also work with a program called the Operational Stress Injury Clinic in London, Ontario. So they really focus on mental health related to service. So they're a great resource for providing like counseling, family therapy. They do medication management, addiction management, and they really focus on like PTSD, anxiety, depression, and those kind of things. So they're also a great resource we work with.
And once the veteran is housed and a little bit more stabilized, our visits don't end there. Like I would continue to connect with them either once a month up to 3 times a week, depending on how much supports they might need in their unit. And some things that I would support with is like helping to prevent them from being homeless again. Because unfortunately, as you know, with some of our veterans or even any a homeless population, they can be unwell and might not get along with their neighbors or might not be doing well at all. So some things that I would do is help do referrals to any external programs if they need mental health supports or addictions. I would also help with harm reduction. That looks like me doing referrals to supervised consumption sites, wraparound supports. We also do and can provide them with gear if needed. We also work with life skills, so like that would look like me supporting them with like cooking or grocery shopping, some things like that. And also if they're having issues in their unit and them and their property manager might not be getting along very well, so that can look like, and they're getting like notices, that might look like them going through LTB. So my role would be to support them through the LTB process, landlord and tenant board process. So I would connect with them and support them if it's a virtual hearing, going through the hearing, and also doing referral. We have a wonderful program in London called Neighborhood Legal that provides wonderful supports to our community members that might be struggling with like landlord and tenant board or property management issues. I also support with any criminal like legal issues they might have through criminal court, attending court with them, connecting them with their lawyers, and things like that.
So a veteran's been in our program a while. They're doing really good. We can look at graduating them from the program. So the only time they would graduate though is if they weren't connected to a housing subsidy. So I just want to touch on housing subsidies first. Individuals who are on housing subsidies and doing really well, they don't really need those connections as often anymore, will move to something called light touch. So our light touch caseloads generally connect once or twice a month, so not too often, and just for basic check-ins, making sure that they're doing well, nothing crazy is going on in the unit, all good with their rent and things. So yeah, that would be light touch. In terms of graduation, so that's for an individual not attached to a subsidy, we really work with them before graduation to make sure they're set up for success, that we're budget planning with them, that they're connected to appropriate resources, that they have that wraparound care, their unit's good, they're not in arrears, good landlord relationships, and a clear breakdown of what resources they have available to them post-graduation. Because our program is always open. They're always welcome to come back in. If something arises once they graduate, they're always welcome to reconnect. It's never a permanent discharge, it's a safety net. So we want to make sure that they know that we're there for them and what supports are there for them if they begin to experience issues with their unit, or if they're going to be experiencing, like possibly experiencing homelessness again. Okay. And support for our elderly veterans. So sometimes as our veterans get older, they're not able to live independently. So we can also work with them for planning to go to long-term care. So we usually connect with Ontario Health at Home to complete those assessments to get them eligible for long-term care. And then we work alongside a veteran-specific program called Parkwood, and they have a great program there for our veterans. So they provide very geared to resources that are geared to veterans. So very veteran specific. They have a great program there. They have a bar for them. They have like entertainment areas, and they really know what resources and what things come up with veterans that they will need support with. So it just ensures that they have a dignified, safe space that's really catered to them and tailored to their needs. I think we're almost done. I feel like I talked really fast. So ways you can support veterans in your community. So just a show of hands, how many people have programs like this in their community supporting their veterans? Oh, so many of you. That's amazing. Okay, well, for those that don't, a great way to support our veterans is really connecting with local resources, whether that be the Legion, your city, Veterans Affairs Canada. So that's how all of this started, was collaboration between so many amazing agencies that wanted to help veterans, to support those who served our country and were there for us and protected us. So just going through the handout that I gave you guys, and really reaching out and connecting and coming together and collaboratively approaching the issue of veterans homelessness, because we work with Built for Zero and our goal is to have no veterans homeless. Right now we have 5 veterans that are homeless in our community, which is pretty great, but you know, we want to work to 0. And so every community, I feel like, is striving for that. And so just connecting and collaboratively working with your communities and your local legions. We're gonna skip this part because we're questions and comments later, but that's our contact information. If anybody wants to reach out or come chat with us after the session is done, if we have time, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, that's our contact information, and I think that's all. And we are just gonna take questions and comments after the next presenter. If you could just hold.
Thanks, Allison and Dana. There we go. I think we have you up. So next, yeah. So I'm just going to stop it then.
Yeah, and just restart from there.
Okay. Because the other one didn't. The other one didn't transcribe either, did it?
No, it was.
It was? Okay.
Just when we go here, go there, and now it's
All right, technical work done. All right, next up we have Oliver Thorne, the Chief Executive Officer with Veterans Transition Network.
Okay, test, test, test. I'm going to do my best not to bounce around too much and stray from the microphone. Thank you everybody for being here. My name's Oliver. I'm CEO with the Veterans Transition Network. We're a registered charity that provides counseling programs for members and veterans of the Canadian Armed Forces across Canada. The title of my presentation today is Building a Bridge Home, a primer on military cultural competency. Before I begin, I'm just going to say a few quick words for our francophone members of the audience. Bonjour aux spectateurs francophones ici aujourd'hui. Je suis désolé, mais mon présentation aujourd'hui sera aucunement en anglais, mais restez rassurés que les services en français, c'est tellement important à nous chez le réseau de transition de vétérans. Alors, si vous avez des questions au sujet des services français, s'il vous plaît, parlez avec moi après mon présentation. So ordinarily, this is where I would spend most of my time talking about the organization and what we do, but I've got a fair bit of content to get through, so I'm just going to move really quickly through this section so you have an idea of who we are and what we do. So the Veterans Transition Network is a registered charity. We're headquartered in Vancouver, but we operate across Canada, and we provide group-based counseling programs to help members in the transition from military to civilian life. Those programs look a lot like what you see up on the screen. It's a group of veterans facilitated by 2 registered mental health professionals and 2 returning program graduates, our peer supporters. Our program and organization are rooted in cultural competency. When our program founders realized 25 years ago that veterans were often not well served by the existing psychological services in the civilian sector. So they created this program at the University of British Columbia. 12 years ago, our charity was incorporated to take that program out of the university and make it accessible across Canada. 12 years later, we operate from coast to coast for men and women and English and French. Last year, we began a funded project with the Veterans Homelessness Program through Housing Infrastructure and Communities to provide our programs as a preventative counseling measure for veterans who are at risk of homelessness because of the mental health challenges they face from service. So although we have 25 years of working with military and veterans, we are actually quite new to the homelessness sector. So me being here, I'm not just to teach, but also hopefully to learn how we can better connect and do this work with all of you folks in this sector. So on the topic of learning, my objectives today are pretty simple. I hope that when you leave, you will have a better understanding of the transition from military to civilian life, what that can look like for veterans, recognizing the military and service roots of some of the risk factors that put them in danger of falling into homelessness, understanding why cultural competency matters when addressing those risk factors and those service experiences. And finally, if you find this valuable, and I hope you do, where you can go to learn more. So I'm going to talk today about a lot of subjects that I think, and a lot of risk factors, topics that will be very familiar to you, perhaps even more so than they are to me. But my thesis to hang over this presentation, or one of 2 themes, is that behind many familiar homelessness risks, for veterans, there often lies a story that is deeply shaped by their military experience and culture. So to give you an example of one of those stories, I would like to introduce you to Sergeant Joe Bloggins. Now, this is not a picture of Sergeant Joe. Sergeant Joe is fictional. I see some veterans in the audience. They are going to very quickly pick up on where the story does not match with the photo. My apologies, you can chew me out outside after I'm finished. But although Sergeant Joe is fictional, he is highly representative of the folks we work with at VTN across Canada. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sergeant Joe's story. So, Joe joined young at the age of 18. He had a difficult home life, not a lot of stability, and he saw the military as an opportunity to pull himself out of that environment, develop skills, income, stability, and growth. So he joined at 18 in the Reg Forces. He was with 2nd Battalion PPCLI and did a 20-year career. Over the course of that career, he did multiple postings, including 2 tours on Roto 08 and 10. After he came back from his 2nd tour, he was diagnosed with a physical injury and an OSI. He was posted to the JPSU, but ultimately given a 3B medical release. Is that all clear? So I apologize for our translators. I think I've just given them a heart attack. And some of this obviously may not seem all that clear to us as civilians, but when we look a little more closely at these elements and moments in Joe's career, we can understand the effect that they had on him as an individual. So Joe joined young at the age of 18. That means the Canadian Armed Forces was not just a paycheck and a source of income, but it was where Joe formed his sense of identity, his community, purpose, belonging, and his values as a young man. The PPCLI that I mentioned is the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. This means that Joe served in the combat arms. These are units within the military that have high levels of group cohesion and shared values, but they have an increased exposure and risk to physical and mental health injuries, traumatic brain injuries, and trauma. The postings that I mentioned, the 2 postings that Joe did over the course of his career, means that he was posted to various bases across Canada. This means that he and his family had just a couple of months' notice to put their house on the market, pull their kids out of school, have his wife quit her job, pack up all their belongings, and set up shop in a new place in Canada without any of the social support or the network that they had in their old home. Roto 08 and Roto 10 that I mentioned means that twice Joe was deployed to Afghanistan. So this means that for a period of 6 to 9 months, depending on the workup training that happened beforehand, Joe was away from his family. He was in an environment of constant exposure to threat, to risk, and to trauma. That exposure had an impact. And the OSI I mentioned is an operational stress injury. This is a psychological injury that the military attributes to service. So depression, PTSD, anxiety, moral injury. The final point I mentioned, the 3B medical release, and this is perhaps one of the most important parts of the story, means that when Joe left the military, it was not his choice. It was not on his terms. That organization that helped him form his sense of identity, purpose, and belonging as a young man pushed him out because he no longer fit the universality of service. So when we look closer at these specific service experiences and these branching moments in Joe's career and life, we can begin to see some familiar risks that emerge. Joe experienced adverse childhood events. To escape that instability, he went into the military and formed a fantastic source of peer support, of pride, of identity. But the role that he did put him at increased risk of injuries, traumatic brain injury, and trauma. The trauma exposure had the effect of a mental health injury like depression and anxiety, which ultimately led to him being, let's just say, booted out of the Canadian Armed Forces. Joe struggled to contend with that major life transition and the symptoms of those injuries because he did not have the social support that he had built and maintained over those years because of the constant postings and his deployments. So as I said, this is a fictional story, but all of these elements are highly represented in the folks that we work with at the Veterans Transition Network. And I'll just give you a minute to take in this slide. One piece that I'll point out is the high rate of adverse childhood events in the folks that we serve, the high rates of trauma, social isolation, and mental health injuries. And for women, almost 60% of the women that we served have experienced military sexual trauma at some point in their careers, which we defined in our survey as sexual contact under force or threat of force. Also another experience like being pushed out of the military that leads in many cases to a sense of institutional betrayal and sanctuary trauma from a place that was supposed to be safe and a place that was supposed to take care of you. As civilian service providers, we often see the outcomes with people who walk through our doors. But for anybody, and in particular for folks who have served in the military, understanding the pathway of how we came to be there is just as important, or is incredibly important in providing effective care and connection for these folks. To give an example of why it's important and what it looks like when it's done correctly, or how good the outcome can be when things go well, I'd like to share another story with you, but this time a real one.
Mon nom, c'est Mario Nollet. C'était un exercice d'observation dans des secteurs là, un peu partout sur le territoire iranien. On était placés chacun dans une chambre séparée, des portes de métal. On ne pouvait pas sortir de là. J'aime bien appeler un chat, c'était un prisonnier. Ça a été difficile parce qu'on a passé 6 mois dans le trou. On sortait un par un, puis là, eux, ils voulaient qu'on voie toutes les horreurs qui se passaient là, pendant cette guerre-là. Là. Les odeurs, l'image. C'est ancré là, ça part pas. I'm still fighting this today. I see the things exactly just like I was there today. And nightmares and panic crisis. That's all what I live with today. Then last year, I decided it was enough. I did 2 2 suicide attempts. The Veteran Transition Network helped me a lot because when I came here, this was the first time that I could explain my problem and I could tell them what I went through. First of all, I didn't think there was other guys living like me. I thought I was alone. The VTN must be in Quebec. That is the solution. It's the best help a soldier can get. La Fondation La Patrie, gravée sur le cœur, c'est une organisation formidable. Ils réussissent à trouver des fonds nécessaires pour que des gens comme moi, malades à cause des missions qu'on a faites, de venir ici et suivre un cours tout à fait exceptionnel. All the stuff that stop you to live, you leave it here. Believe me, you are free man. In your heart, there is a feeling of joy, and then your new life begins. It's indescribable.
Good. Cultural competency, again, our organization's been rooted in it since the founding, and we believe so strongly in the importance of cultural competency, not just because it affects the risks and the challenges that veterans encounter in that transition in life after service, but my second thesis to hang over all of this is that service not only shapes the risk, but also how veterans do or don't engage with the available services that can support them. I talked earlier about a number of those service factors and experiences that Joe had as a young man. And again, those not only shape his risk as an experience, but they also often manifest as cultural barriers to care. So Joe went in at 18, which means that whenever he needed a doctor, he was sent to the doctor. When he needed a specialist appointment, he was sent to a specialist appointment. He didn't have to self-advocate. He didn't have to navigate a convoluted and complex system like we have in the civilian sector. So veterans often run up against the challenge of a lack of understanding of the services that we have and how to navigate them. They also often do not self-advocate for a couple of major reasons. One, they've never had to. But secondly, any member serving the Canadian Armed Forces, regardless of their element or their trade, is drilled on some of the core and central ethos of the Canadian Armed Forces, which is mission, team, and self. And self is the distant third at all times. So veterans are not accustomed to putting their hand up and saying, I need help. They're not accustomed to chasing down the services like we in the civilian sector often are. Also, there's the deep culture of stoicism and self-sufficiency and self-reliancy, particularly in those trades that I talked about in the Army and the combat arms, which paradoxically are often the most at risk for these mental and physical health injuries that can put them in danger of homelessness. Finally, many veterans have a deep level of institutional distrust because of those experiences of betrayal they've had in the Canadian Armed Forces, either being kicked out or experiencing bullying, harassment, military sexual trauma. And we see that this is a particular challenge in the women that we work with, and also those who have a 2S LGBTQ identity and survived the LGBTQ purge. So, as my board says to me, don't bring me problems, bring solutions. And so, I'm here today and pleased to announce that we will next month be launching a military cultural competency course, freely available to those who would like to take it. So we've constructed this online self-paced course that's comprised of videos, work material, and a workbook. We built it hand in hand with subject matter experts, so clinicians from our network across Canada, as well as veterans. And it's done over 10 modules, takes roughly 3 hours to complete. And we have built it with this professional audience in mind. So we built it for those folks working in mental health, in employment, and the homelessness sector as a part of our funding agreement with the Veterans Homelessness Program through Housing Infrastructure and Communities. So I'm going to give you just a quick little snippet of what the course will look like, and I'll talk a bit more about it in just a moment.
Cultural competency is not a checkbox. It's a lifelong practice. By the end of this course, we want you to really be able to lead with curiosity, not certainty. Stay open to growth and challenge, and reflect often on your own assumptions and emotional responses. This course is a starting point. The work continues with every veteran you meet, every story you hear, and every effort you make to understand their experiences. Thank you for joining this important journey. Let's begin by exploring what it means to understand and work with those who have served.
So we will be launching this course on November 11th, Remembrance Day of this year. It will be freely available to those who would like to take it. Those who participate will receive a certificate of completion, and we're a little ahead of schedule, so we haven't put this in place yet, but we will be working to make the course eligible for continuing education credits as well for those who work in the mental health fields, and we will also pursue for those working in social work. And again, we are new to the homelessness sector, so if anybody in the audience has recommendations about associations we should chase for continuing education credits, please do come and speak to me after the presentation, as this is something we're really keen to pursue. I'd like to thank the Government of Canada for funding the creation of this course and making it freely accessible for those who would like to participate. And once again, if you found this valuable, and I hope you have, you can follow the QR code there to register for launch day access on November 11th. And please feel free to visit our website, send us an email. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Oliver. All right, now is the best part of this session. We will have questions for the panelists. We do have a roving microphone that I can help with. Is that on there? It sounds like it's on. Maybe just
You have a tall guy.
the opposite of me. Yes.
Yeah, it works. Je suis francophone. Je sais qu'ici, c'est national. On a des invités de toutes les provinces. I'll do my best. I'll try to. I haven't practiced since a long time, but please be kind with me. I like to say. C'est un témoignage. I like to say to you all that sorry. When I needed help, you were there. 50 years later, I lost everything. When something bad happened, on appelle ça en français un événement. À tout événement, il y a des causes et il y a des conséquences. I lost everything. Where I was working as I was a broker, an insurance broker. Something real bad happened, but not because of my work. Something that I cannot tell here. It's going to take too long. That broke my family, young kids that I've adopted at the age of 43. So they were teenagers at the time that a big event happened. But the help that I've received was 3 years ago when I lost my house and a big separation that was 38 years with the same person. That was tough to take. Losing my house because she had everything, the house, and was everything that was in it. I only kept the boat, the plastic boat, a sailboat. So I was on the street. I stayed in my car when un huissier est venu après un jugement. Là. And he gave me a paper. He said, I thought that I would go in an appeal, but it didn't work. And I had to stay in my car for 2 weeks, looking at my house that I couldn't get in anymore. I was thinking of all the stuff that I've had for so many years. There's an expression that says, your house is not only a place that you live, it is all that you built. I mean, en français, c'est pas juste l'endroit où vous vivez, mais c'est tout ce que vous avez. Là, okay? That's tough on your head. I mean, it's a big shock. So I had to stay in my car for 2 weeks with my dog. And it was raining, and it was cold at night, minus 2 degrees. I froze. And before using the refugee sites, when came the month of May, the marina where my boat was located, I stayed in my boat for the season. Then came the autumn, the cold, and they closed the marina. So there's no electricity. You cannot use it. It's not a home. It's a boat. And I didn't know where to go. But during that season, that really helped me because I was in something that I liked. I was passionate, both passionate. So that helped me. But that wasn't enough. I needed more support. And the kind of support that I'm saying is something that I'd like to discuss a little further with you. And I knocked on different places. And before I've been helped by the sentier, it's called the trail here in Quebec. That is fantastic, by the way. I serve as a reservist when I was 16 years of age to 21. And one day, after using a refuge, got another one because I have a dog, and that was very difficult, okay? And most of them refused dogs. And my dog, that was the only thing that was left for me, okay? He died 2 months ago. Finally, I found a place. Someone told me, over there they take dogs, and you may as well go there. But that was a crazy place to go. I wanted to save my dog, keep him alive. I didn't want to leave him alone. Un dog, un chien, c'est fidèle. Tu abandonnes pas un chien qui est fidèle. Over there, they asked me, will you please fill up this questionnaire? So they were asking many questions. And for a guy who used to work in the insurance business, I was a broker. I had the three offices. And it can happen to everyone. Just by the way, 25 years ago, I used to work as a public servant at the Ministère des Transports, provincial. And on my pay, I was giving to Centraide $25, $30 a week. I never thought that I would have needed help. Yeah?
Sorry,
You wanna hold my hand?
I'm really enjoying your journey, but I just want to focus. Is there a question? I just kind of
There's two.
a little bit further.
Yeah.
Just so we can hear
Yeah.
Because we have some limited time.
Okay. And they asked me at the Mission Old Brewery, that was the 6th place that I used to go. And the other ones, they didn't ask me those questions. Have you served in the Army? That was one of the 30 questions they asked. I said yes, 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 yes. That was the first time I was feeling a yes that helped me, really, when I needed. And they said, well, it's something new that we have. Probably they started at that time, that questionnaire. And they started a program to find those guys, those girls on the streets, those who are veterans, because it seems to have a lot, like des indigènes, ils sont surreprésentés. That's not normal. And anyway, they kicked me off of the place for a crazy reason. They told me, if you don't do this, you're gonna get out for 24 hours. There was -20 degrees outside, so me and my dog, we were walking, and they were playing with us like kids. They didn't respect us, really. But I had enough, really enough. And a month later, I received a call. Monsieur Duval, yes, he introduced himself as someone who helped veterans. And I said, yes. Well, they checked, because that was a long time ago, 50 years, like I said. And they said, well, there's a new program. There's a place in Dorval that is called the Sentier, the trail. And the place is new. They will receive you as soon as you're available. So I was the first guy to get in that place with my dog. It really helped. I didn't need it, really. That depends on the people. I mean, I didn't need it to be taken by my hand, okay? But I needed support. That was the kind of support that I needed to get a roof, security, knowing that I can be there for a while. And the program was supposed to be for 3 months, and you find an apartment, but knowing what's happening in Canada, there's a crisis, very big crisis of trying to find a place. And yeah, can you be sitting because you're showing me the way out. I mean, I don't like the idea. I'm almost through it. Okay, thank you. And what happened is I filled up my batteries that were almost dead. So when I was charged, full charge enough, I started to smile, to see there's hope. Okay? And in the mid-time, my stuff that was in my house that I was losing, my ex had a generous idea to give me some. So she said, are you living at a place where you can receive the stuff? I said, I think so. There's a garage here. So I got 1/10 of what was as furniture, objects, all kind of things, mechanic, whatever. So I kept my stuff in the garage, and when I found an apartment, I got to the apartment in Rosemont, here in Montreal, but my life is still used to be in the garage, but I bought a trailer, and I filled a big trailer full of my life that was left behind, but these things I needed to my proper health. Okay? And these are souvenirs, these are things that I need to rebuild because I have an idea, an objective to build a little home in 2-3 years' time from now. What I'm saying is, and this is one of the questions, La Légion, how can they help me? Because the trailer was packed, was still in Dorval at the Sentier over there. They are pushing me to take it out. But like the apartment crisis, there's another crisis. You cannot find any parking in town for trailers. I didn't expect that at all. But the Legion could help me to find, I think that will be very helpful because I'm trying to save what I find very important for me, for my health.
And sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jean.
Jean, good to meet you. Well, Jean, there's so many things that you've said that I want to point back to. And I mean, first and foremost, absolutely. I'm already, the wheels are turning a little bit, and I know of some programs within the Legion that may be able to support. I'd be happy to chat with you afterwards for sure. And there's a couple of people I could connect you with who I think could be particularly helpful. Okay. But thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah. You would like me to give you my coordinates?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you very much for what you're doing. Some of you are working. Some have helped me. I got one person in particular at the Sentier, but I didn't need that kind of support that you're forced to sign because if you want to get in, if you don't sign this, you won't get in. So what does it mean? Me, I know what the chart is, Canadian chart, provincial chart. You cannot force someone who, if he doesn't want to get services, like medical services, but to get help, you have to be, you're forced to say, you can open my head, you can play with it, and you can open a file. So those are the things that are not very helpful afterward. Because I know that I've been working in insurance, everyone that applies for a house insurance or car insurance, you don't know, but it costs $2.50 to get your profile, court profile, civil, criminal, that costs $2.50. So if something appears that you get a problem in your head, they'll refuse sometimes to insure you. So we have to be careful with that. And if someone doesn't want to fill or doesn't accept exactly what you're asking, that's to be revised. And I'm thinking of the 6 refuges that I used to go, and they never asked me if I served in the army before. But imagine these people having this formula now, because probably it's spread everywhere. And they ask someone, if you don't sign here, you won't get in. You may refuse people, and they're in the need. You cannot force someone to sign something like this. Sure. And
Jean, I don't want to cut you off because I really appreciate everything that you're saying. And you said thank you, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. And the reason I say that is that picture of the group that I showed you earlier when I began my presentation, everything that we do is within the group because the group is powerful, and it's particularly so for those who have served because they have a team and they work in a team. And they often lose that, and so the ability to rebuild it is enormously important. And I talked about the stoicism and the resistance to help-seeking, and Jean, it's people like you sharing your story which gives others the permission to come forward and ask for help so that hopefully we can catch them earlier and not 50 years too late. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm going to find you afterwards and let's exchange information. Absolutely. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Guy Ayotte. I used to be corporal in the 4th Battalion, 22nd Regiment from 1980 to 1989. The thing is, when I went out from my regiment, I was checking for a doctor to help me because of my problems in my head, and I didn't find it. I tried to hospital as Rosemont, as the one of Jean Talon, and even to not far from Hôtel Dieu. They were nobody as us, the soldier, to take care of us about our problem. Because they were saying, kind of, he's making a drawer of his house and you're just beside it, eh? And say, No, you don't do nothing. You don't help me like this. So I said, bye-bye. Okay? But still, it's been since 1989, I'm trying to have a place that people can be helping them, okay? Okay, sometimes I can speak to people that I know, as the people of OCC, but still, as the trail, as Le Sentier at Mirabel, okay? Those people, they are qualified on that, but they have to stay in Mirabel. They're not coming in Montreal for a trail, because at this moment they had all the problem. It's the transport, because it's Décarie, you know. So the thing I'm asking at the same time at the ACC is, I went 9 years in Vendus. I didn't have my pension because I asked why. They said I have to make 10 years before I have my pension, but one of my friends at 4 years he's got it. So what's happening? Something is wrong. You know that? So it's almost like they're saying, well, you're going to have the one of the government of Quebec, okay? But Quebec doesn't give the kind of money you're supposed to have. Because instead they taking some money and they put it somewhere else. Yeah. And you're supposed to be on the payroll as handicap, okay? Because I'm diabetic at the same time, okay? So they put you on the sheet and they say, So I say, hey, what's the, you know, well, excuse me what I'm telling to, but at the same time, I'm saying, I don't have it. You're giving almost $55,000 per year for another person who is an ex-veteran, and some people, even of those, they are in the street, and they are soldiers like me. And it's hard to tell them, come to see at OBM. They're working with us. We are 35 as veteran, and it's OBM is making the thing, okay? But still, we try to have doctors and people to understand what we're living, okay? Because when you're coming out from the army, like my guys from my unit, he says, your body is out, but your thinking is still in the reserve forces. So,
and there's a couple of points that I can respond to there. And this is a challenge that we see so often, is veterans who are trying to access the services, the supports, the pensions that they rightly deserve, and it is hidden by behind this massive wall of paperwork. And we all know the challenge of getting a family doctor in Canada. We'll try and get one to also fill out additional paperwork that they're not familiar with and that they don't want to do because they're not getting any additional money for it. Another big challenge for veterans who are trying to get access to the services that they rightly deserve. And I also have some people I want to introduce you to who can also assist with that. But this is part of what we have in our cultural competency course as well, is trying to explain to those who are working on as health practitioners, the important role that work plays. And again, understanding some of those service-related risk factors, like when it comes to pension, it might be hips, knees, feet, anything along those lines. The folks working combat arms, highly exposed to those physical injuries and rightly deserve their pensions and to be compensated for those injuries, but it sits behind that wall of paperwork. And it's part of what we're trying to solve with this course, is so that folks like you get access to what you deserve.
Well, thank you for hearing what I'm told, and at the same time, I hope it will be good for everybody else.
We hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to bring this around for
Hi. I just have a question specific about 2S LGBTQI veterans and purge survivors. Do you have specialized services or processes to deal with their specific needs and issues?
Yeah. Do you guys want to take it first, or do you want? No. Me or?
Oh, any of you.
Okay. No. Okay. So the group programs that we do, so the answer is yes. We don't have a specific stream of programming for folks who are 2S LGBTQ, but our groups are small. So every group program that we run is 6 veterans who are attending for the first time as the clients, 2 registered mental health professionals, and 2 returning program graduates. And so because that course is quite small, when we're doing those intake interviews and assessments with people, what are you coming here to work on? What's your big barrier to transition, or what are the traumatic pieces you're struggling with? For many, many folks that we're working with, it could be military sexual trauma, it could be harassment, it could be discrimination because of a 2S LGBTQ identity. And so we can be cognizant of that in that intake process, and we can build the program with those needs in mind. And so I'm thinking of, and so to answer the question, we've had many members come through who have 2S LGBTQ identities. And there's one particularly interesting story, and this was actually somebody who worked with the Vancouver Police Department, not military, but during the Robert Picton case, the serial killer in British Columbia. And so they were dealing with trauma at that time, but also dealing with this, struggling with gender identity, assigned female at birth, but questioning, and went through our program in, I want to say 2014, and applied to participate in a men's program. And at first our clinician said, well, is that quite the right fit? But they had a conversation, and we brought that person in, and she was born Laurie. She now goes by he now goes by Lorimer, and he talked about the program as the first time that he was literally and figuratively embraced by a group of brothers. And so it can be this really affirming experience for people. And so we are able to build it in, yes, and we do it on an individual basis based on that person and their needs. So, yeah.
And then for us, we don't have any specific programs, but we build that into our engagements on a daily basis. So if an individual is wanting to connect with community resources and just get some support and connect with individuals like themselves, we can definitely refer out and try to connect them to as many resources as possible, just as part of providing that wraparound support.
We have a question.
Yeah, my name is Aklilu. I work with a place called Good Shepherd Ministries, so we work with veterans also. So I just wanted to say a couple of things. Number one, thank you very much for the new course that you're offering. This is something we have been really looking forward. I just registered online now, and my coworkers, a number of people in my agency would definitely benefit from that. This has been a big gap, and we've been trying to fill that through peer workers. But again, I think having that competency is essential. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Having said that, a quick question to my sisters there. Can you tell us a little bit more about the subsidy? You talked about those who are on OSP or OW pay a certain amount of money. So I just want to get some clarification because I work on similar kind of project. Just want to establish what exactly is happening. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of a Housing First agency, we do work with St. Leonard's in that housing identification program to put subsidies in place to make rent affordable for individuals who are lower income, OW, ODSP. So for OW and ODSP, you have a set rental allowance provided to you from them, so it goes paid direct to the landlord. So any amount that's left over, so say your rent is $1,200 a month and your subsidy is $599 from ODSP, we will match the rental portion. So we will put a subsidy in place to make sure the rental amount is met. So in the case that we had up on the slides, it was $601 a month. So we usually find units between around $1,500, and so we just subsidize those units for those individuals to make sure the rent is paid and it can be afforded and they have safe housing.
So basically,
Just a moment. You need the mic to get it for the transcription.
So I just want to be very clear. So basically, you take the rent section of OW or ODSP, and then you top it up, yeah? Is that right?
So the rental portion is paid directly to the landlord and we top up whatever's left.
So all of it, like...
Yep, so if the rent's, say, $1,500, or our example was $1,200 a month, they would get $599 from ODSP, that would be paid directly to the landlord, and we pay the difference through the housing identification program.
So for people who are on ODSP or OW, does the 30% rule apply?
No, that's only for individuals who are CPP, OAS, or working.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And Akilu, you stole my questions. You can tell the housing providers in the room here, so because I have a very similar question, and you probably mostly answered it. But first of all, thank you again for that training course. I'm not as quick on the IT as Akilu around signing up now, but I'm with Fred Victor in Toronto, and we have a housing referral program with the Legion as well. But my question is on the rent HIP, I guess, is that bringing it up to the average market rent? So if you are constructing housing, can you rely on the HIP to cover the gap?
So
can you layer that into a pro forma? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, so it really depends on the price of the unit, but we do have exceptional circumstances for certain units. It really depends on the pricing. We do try to limit there are limits to how much they can put in place for subsidies, because this subsidy program is not just for our veterans, it's for multiple Housing First agencies within London. So there's hundreds of people accessing this program. So like non-veterans in our program, we have about 60 non-veterans in our program because we have 6 other housing stability workers. And all of our folks that are non-veterans are on housing subsidies. Some of our veterans do not access housing subsidies because of their income. So we do have to limit the amount, unfortunately, on the rental portion.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of partially my question. It's not you've carved out for veterans, but it's not specifically a veterans program.
Yeah, no. So we are a Housing First agency, and there's multiple Housing First agencies in London. So our whole program, there's 8 housing workers, 2 are veteran specific, and 6 are intensive case management workers. So we work with high acuity individuals, and pretty much all those high acuity individuals are on housing subsidies.
And that usually comes from the municipality. Okay, great, thanks.
All right, I've got 1 question at the back and 2 at the front. I'm coming around.
Hi, thank you very much for your services. And I wanted to compliment those 2 gentlemen that, their life experience. I just wanted to mention that, in Montreal, we have 4 major refuge for everybody. And sometimes some of the workers, the case managers, they're not fully informed of the program. Probably that's why, sometimes they don't ask the right question. But more and more, there's one individual or like a group of person on site to say, to ask the right question to the veterans and to be able to give them the right services. And that would be something like, to propose, like those groups, to visit those refuge once in a while. So like the individuals are aware of the programs instead of only the case workers. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Maria, and I am with the BC Yukon Legion Foundation. So first, thank you for your service, and to you guys and any other veterans in the room. Secondly, it's wonderful to see the amazing work that you guys are doing. For us working in, this is my coworker, Jennifer. For us working in a space serving veterans, first, it's an honor to be able to assist anybody who has served our country. And secondly, it's a great privilege to work with so many other partnered organizations. Like together we form a network of care, and I think we need each other. And it's really important to see you guys here at the conference because I think you're the only session for veteran homelessness, right?
There's one tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So I have a question for you, Oliver. Does your program provide peer support? And can you explain a bit more about that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, peer support is woven pretty closely in the program. And again, I don't have the slide up there, but that group that we had before of the people sitting in a chair, or sitting in a circle in chairs, that's what our program looks like. It's pretty low tech, but high concept. We have a very well-developed clinical and therapeutic curriculum, but it's pretty simple. It's a circle of chairs, and it is led by 2 registered mental health professionals. So these are licensed psychologists or clinical counselors. But every program is also co-facilitated by 2 returning program graduates. So these are veterans who have been through the program, they've lived the experience for themselves, and they are there. We have psychologists in our network who are veterans, but the majority are civilians. And so the role of those peer supporters who are coming back is to model the skills we're teaching, to jump in feet first and lead by example. But the most important role they play is to help us build trust with that group of veterans who are there for the first time. Because every program, no matter if it's in English, French, for men and women, anywhere in the country, it looks exactly the same on day one. It's 6 veterans sitting in a circle looking at 2 counselors thinking, I don't fucking trust you. You don't know who I am, you don't know what I've been through, you have no idea about my life experience. And so the role of those peer supporters in the early hours and even minutes of that program is to say, look, I know you might not trust them, but I do. So give them 30 minutes and let's see what happens. And that's our foot in the door to begin building trust, build group cohesion, safety, so that we can go into the depth that we go into of talking about traumatic events. And again, we believe so strongly in the power of the group. And so yes, peer support is woven into that in a really strong way, because so many of these injuries that veterans experience, and you heard Mario say it in that video, I didn't think anybody else was like me. I didn't think anybody else reacted like I did. And so the ability to be seen, heard, and understood in that group, and to have somebody else say, I had a similar experience, and this was my reaction, and I see you, I hear you, you're not wrong, you're not broken, this is a normal reaction to abnormal events, is a hugely powerful and healing experience, if done correctly. And peer support is a huge part of that. So that was a long-winded answer to say yes. Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Valerie from the YWCA St. Thomas Algon. I want to say thank you to both of you for sharing your stories and anyone else in the room that served. Thank you for your programs. I have 2 questions. The first is for both groups, and the second is for London Cares. My first question is, when you have individuals that are requiring service, do you have a particular service model when families with dependents or a partner are involved? My second question is, for your housing programs, how long is the turnaround from identification and confirmation to housing?
Okay, so in terms of families, we will bring everybody in. So there are, if it's a child or family members under 18, then they don't require as much. We just kind of bring them in. When we do referrals to the HIP, we make sure that they're aware that there's children, and then so the housing finder will just find units to match what the family needs. If the children are over 18, we require a little more than that. So, for example, we had a family of 4 come in with 2 adult boys, and so they required proof of income, they need government photo ID, and those kind of things to come into the program, because for the HIP program, we need to do that referral as a whole. We have that same thing happening right now. We have a family of, I think, 4, and so it's like a male, his partner, daughter, and brother, and so they require a lot more paperwork. They also all need SPDATs done, as well as the proof of income and ID. So, but we can provide wraparound supports for the whole family. In terms of like specific veteran supports, that would just go to the veteran, but we can kind of support where we can. So, and then what was your second question, sorry?
What's the housing turnaround from identification until housed?
It really depends. Unfortunately, the housing market is not great right now, but with our veterans, a lot of landlords are more willing to work with them, and there's not as much hesitancy like with our intensive case management folks. So it really depends. We've housed veterans in a couple months, and we've housed sometimes it takes longer. It also depends on if the veteran's connecting. So the veterans we have currently right now sitting on our NFA list are ones that have significant mental health, addiction, and are more complex and higher acuity. So we're having a harder time housing them. So they've been sitting on our NFA list for a while. So it really just depends on the veteran, their engagement, and like what housing is available.
And I think your question was about services for family. Is that right? So the majority of what we do at Veterans Transition Network is those group counseling programs for the veteran themselves. However, we did pilot last year. We have now officially launched and are expanding this year a couples counseling program as well, so for the veteran and for their partner. Our first 10, 12 years of operation really was just about getting ourselves accessible everywhere across Canada. We're now there. Then COVID threw us for a bit of a loop. We're now out of that. So we're looking at launching new services, but it's a slow process. Yeah.
We have time for one last question. Yes.
Cheryl Forchuk from London. I'll be really fast. I was just going to say our London Cares folks were a little bit modest because they should have also said that London was the first community in Canada to functionally end veteran homelessness, knowing that like every place it gets a little bit harder at times with the pandemic, but you were too modest. And then also I would, because of the time, I'll just say I can't, I think we can't overestimate the importance of culture. When I know many of you know, we did the first Canadian study on veterans experiencing homelessness, set that up in a number of communities starting 15 years ago. And when we talk to people why they do not seek out from the homeless sector, very often it's cultural reasons, even things like difference in perception of time. I did the one thing with the 10 communities that the Legions had the most requests for the Poppy Fund. We did them at Legions. It was at 9 o'clock. I deliberately started at 9:01 and it said how many people noticed. I started a minute late. All the veterans did. Some of them threatened if I'd gone one more minute, they were going to walk out. None of the homeless sector noticed that. They thought, well, gee, 1 minute, you're kind of early. But it's just one of the many examples. So I would really suggest that people, you're going to get people on my team, even though we used to get that military culture 101 you used to be able to get through VAC, but now you can't. I say for the homeless sector, I think if you're bringing service to this group, I would really recommend that you get as many people as possible to take that course.
15 seconds, please. Last word. Thank you. Are there Montrealers here? People who live in Montreal? Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking this. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, okay? Me, as a Montrealer, there is an election right now. I've decided to do something for the case, for the homeless people. So I'm a candidate to become a mayor of the city of Montreal. So those who are going to vote this Sunday, they're going to see my face on the ballot. We are 8. 5 parties, 3 independent. So I've decided to go there to show them that there are solutions to help homeless people on the street. I've told them, and on the profile, if you click, you'll see what I've done and the suggestion that I'm in for. I ask the people to allow the city to buy 3 used cruiser boats. Cruise boats that, you know, there are about, for those who traveled in those boats in the past, 2,500 to 3,000 cabins each. So there are thousands of them on the planet right now. So there's a market, we can buy used boats. I'm saying this because Montreal, we have the river, Ontario Lake, there's Vancouver, there's the Maritimes, there's a need that can be, on peut aider comme ça avec des bateaux de croisière, and we have to figure out to plug the electricity. But here in Montreal, for those boats, here in Montreal we have the subway who's next to there's a huge parking lot. We can park those boats on the dock. You know, we can build them fast. We can buy them fast, but it takes the will. The idea is not stupid at all. Sometimes there are problems, big problems. You can find solutions with small ideas, and that's the reason I'm putting my face on the ballot. And well, you'll hear from me in the future because I want to defend many dossiers, but the homeless one, I lived it. So I'm going to help for the future those in the need myself. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Oh, and I forgot to mention for those who didn't, well, the QR code is still up there, but I also have some brochures with the QR code. Je suis désolé, ils sont seulement en anglais à ce moment, mais restez rassurés, les courses en français, c'est disponible au fin de novembre.
Yeah, I'd like to thank our presenters. Great job. This is such important work. If you're looking for other resources, feel free to go on our Built for Zero website. We do have a number of resources shared from communities that are working in community, helping to resolve veteran homelessness every day. Again, I would like to thank people who asked questions and our veterans that shared with us. Thank you. I'm sorry we couldn't give you more airtime. But yeah, thank you for your service. So.